Hello, fellow enjoyers of the AFL. Deano here, doing a bit of a cheeky tier list ranking of the 2024 AFL draft prospects. Thank you to Matza for putting together the tier list and all the players' photos here. So, without further ado, number one, I thought I'll get it out early. There's no way that our boy Levi Ashcroft is not an S tier. He's got it all. Can probably play, like I said in the last vid, all over the ground. Probably would have played in the Lions premiership team if he was in it this year, to be fair. So, I just think there's no chance with his leadership and skill around the ground, his engine. There's no chance this guy isn't an elite player for years to come. So easy one, number one. He goes there in the S tier. I'm going to try and not put too many plays in the S tier, just to keep it exclusive. So I'm really only going to reserve it. I'm thinking maybe for like 3 of them. So 2 to 3 plays will make it there. And I should probably say actually a bit of justification here. D doesn't mean I don't like the player. I want to be very clear. All the players here, I reckon, are going to be guns, as we all do pre-draft. I don't think any of them, and I'm not going to predict any of them, won't be good players. But D kind of more means like end of best 22 role player sort of players, and then S is like elite best players on their team sort of situation. So, yeah, there's the justification. So I reckon Levi definitely in years to come will be one of the Lions' best players. So he's an easy one there. Leo Lombard's an interesting one. I don't know. Admittedly, I haven't seen as much of him just because he's a Gold Coast Academy player, and kind of you lose a little bit of interest when they're both interstate and taken by the Academy. But I think it's fair to put him between A and B. You know what? He's been doing it in the VFL. No, you know what? I'm putting him in B for now. I'll move him if I need to. He's been doing his thing in the VFL, so I'll give him credit for that. But I just think, I don't know, there might be a few other boys I like better in the A. And if I want, I might squeeze him at the end of A later. We'll see how we go. Similar one actually is Bo Allen. Not that he's tied to an academy, but he's playing there over in WA. Apparently tough as guts. Like, I really like watching him play. He's quick, tough. Seems to be very like good in self-awareness and leadership and things like that. Like, he knows the role he'll play more so of a defender when he comes in, and then maybe moving into the midfield later. Similar maybe to like a Jinby. I don't know. I'll put him in the B tier as well for now, but I'll put him above Leo. I do like him a bit better than Leo Lombard. I think he's got a bit more height and physicality and presence to him. We got another Brizzy boy here. So Sam Marshall, he also an father-son pick with the Lions. He really come on at the end of the year. He was like best on ground in the Sandy Dragons final win. So you got to respect that. I do think he's more of a role player though. I'm going to put him in C or D. Remember, D is like end of 22. I think he'll be a solid role player, which is kind of what I'm putting to the C there. I think that's fair for now. Fancy for the number 1 pick now, Sam Lawler. I never had him in that top 1, 2 or 3 calculations. If you guys have been tracking the draft rankings videos, he's always been sort of a little bit further out and then coming in. I see the potential, don't get me wrong, but I don't see it as surefire number 1 pick. And I do like a few guys above him, but he's definitely a quality player. Tough, can jump, forward of center presence, can tackle like anything. So I reckon easy A tier. He's probably the first that goes into the A's. But would not be surprised if the Tigers select him based on potential alone. Like I said, I want to keep the S tier exclusive, so I'm going to put him in the A tier, but definitely a gun player for years to come. If the Tigers pick him 1, it won't be a surprise at all. Cheeky Jack O here. So tall sort of winger that turned inside mid towards the end of the year. He can get the ball. I do like him. I kept a close eye on him in the finals there of the Coates League, and I thought he's still a bit more raw. I can't see him having too quick of an impact in the AFL level. So I think end of best 22 is probably a good spot to have him there. It'd be going out on, I don't know, a bit of false pretense there if you're going to predict him to be anything more than end of best 22. If he does, like, fair play to him. Fair play to him. Another guy, his teammate actually, who had a really cracking into the year is Ollie Hannaford. Small forward, but then he went on ball and shut down my boy Murphy Reid. For those of you that know, it caused Murphy Reid to slip from 1 to like 8 on my rankings list. Just due to, I was just scared at that point that like if you can get tagged out of the game by Ollie Hannaford, then we're in a bit of trouble here. But then after doing some thinking, spoiler alert for a little bit later, I think Murphy's going to be back up in the good books. And that doesn't take anything away from Ollie Hannaford, though. I think he'll come into the league and be like that small pressure forward that every team wants, to be honest. So I'm hesitant to put him higher than C, but I'll put Marshall ahead of him. I think Marshall's Oh, actually, no. I like Ollie Hannaford better. I'll go Hannaford slightly above Marshall as that sort of really solid contributor week in, week out to an AFL list. I think he can be a pretty pretty good find for any team that gets him. Crucially, though, the role will be big for him. If he comes into a team and can just focus on being a pressure forward and can kick a couple goals, I think he'll be fine. Sid the Kid Draper. Next up. I wasn't paying as much attention to this guy as I should have in the last couple draft rankings videos. And I'm going to actually pop him second in the S tier. Slightly behind Levi, but probably like a hair between them. This guy, he's just explosive. What I've really loved, the closer we get to the end of the year and the actual draft, the more you learn about the characters and see a few interviews. And I just think he's got, I know it sounds like cringy and stuff, but leader written all over him. Well-spoken, very self-aware, and obviously his on-field skills do the talking. And he's been playing Sandful seniors most of the year and holding his own and showing some real glimpses there. One of the criticisms I gave him in the recent draft rankings videos was he doesn't seem like he takes the responsibility to take kicks on and take some more risky kicks and progress the ball up the field. But I think that was a bit harsh given he's playing Sandful. So he's probably just at that point in his development, just, handballing it off to the senior guys and so on. So I think if you see more of his SA Ally stuff in the state leagues, I think he was definitely taking that more responsibility on. And there's that one highlight play where he just wanted the ball more than Josh Smiley. And I think that's pretty telling. So S tier for me. I think if you're selecting Ashcroft or Draper in the draft at this point, in any of those top 3 to 5 picks, I think you're just probably as sure things as you can get in an AFL draft, in my opinion. Who's up next? Harry Armstrong. This is an interesting one. I really like Harry Armstrong. Being a North fan as well, I'll be stoked if we pick him. Maybe obviously not with pick 2, but at some point, I think he's a really good key forward. In saying that, he's at the moment more of a low possession, just high impact player. Like he can crush the pack, kick some goals. It's not unlike him to see under 10 disposals, but half of them are goals sort of thing. So players like that, I mean, they're invaluable. Goals are the most valuable thing you can do on the field. So it's leaning to me more like A or B. I think it's hard to find good key forwards. So the fact that he's got such good potential there, I'm going to squeeze him in the A tier, but I might change my mind later and put him to the higher end of B. We'll see how we go. Taj Hodden. This is an unfortunate one. Similar to Braden George a few years ago. ACL injury ruining the draft year, but the potential's clear there to see. Had he not been injured, he's probably A tier, to be honest. And, I guess we're sort of projecting here and ranking players by their careers, not just what's happened so far. So I think, it's only fair that he sort of goes A or B. I'm going to put him here B behind Leo and Bo. Just there's less there to see, but if he had the opportunity, I think he would have easily been either cemented the B or pushed on to A, maybe even S. He showed that much potential. I kind of liken him to a bit of a Connor Rozzy-esque player if he gets it all going, but hopefully, unlike Braden George, he can recover quickly and contribute sooner than later. Taji Hodden there. My boy Murphy Reed's next. I'm so torn on this guy. If you're asking me based on vibes and what I know it's like my video here, so I can say exactly what I think, but I'm so tempted to put him in S tier, but I'm not. I'm going to put him in A, in between Lawler and Armstrong. And simple reason is, I was concerned about his pace and maybe getting caught by Ollie Hannaford a couple times there in the final. But the reality is he uses class forward of the ball. In congestion, he's got the quickest hands in the draft, like Harry Sheezel-esque quick hands and no-look handballs. And I just think players like that make winning plays at AFL level. And you see it in the final series, the most recent footy we've seen, which is you don't have time. You don't have time to do anything. And players that can slow the game down just by poise, like a Pendlebury, like a Sheezel, they're invaluable. And I just think he'll figure out how to not get tackled every second by guys like Ollie Hannaford. I really back him in to figure that out. But the reality is he doesn't have that pace to him or any sort of physical presence. So I think there's sort of a limit to how much he can really dominate a game. But simply based on his class alone, I can't not have him in A. He's my boy. And in another draft, I reckon he probably goes top 3 or 4. He probably slipped to 6 to 10. If any team picks him outside the top 10, based on what I'm reading, there's a lot of guys rising and he seems to be falling. That would be nuts if he went outside the top 10, in my opinion. and that team would be getting excellent value. Next up is Luke Traynor. Being a North fan, seeing him mocked to North so many times, if you guys have seen the vids recently, you probably see and know that I'm not the biggest fan of Luke Traynor just because he's got some North Melbourne links. I don't really care. I want us to get the best players possible. Now, in saying that, he has had some concussions latter part of the year, which sort of put him off the radar of a lot of teams. The reality is he's a very good player. I think he's more of a sure thing to be a really good contributor than guys like Hannaford and Marshall. But for me, he's not in that B tier, which I'm sort of considering the better sort of 10 players on the list. I think he's more that mid-range sort of 22 player. So very good player. I think he can contribute to a winning team. I'm not as convinced by him as others. I can't really, maybe I'm not putting into words so well, but I just don't see it. And the games where he played well and people were bragging, I'd watch the highlights and think, geez, don't know if I see exactly what everyone's seeing. But I hope he proves me wrong because he's really got some excellent, some height, some wingspan to him, and he seems to read the ball really well. So I hope he puts it all together. But for me, he's more, that middle of the best 22 sort of quality player. Job Shanahan. I wasn't rating him probably as much as I should have until he went VFL and then started banging in some goals. For me, it's one of those ones, him and Armstrong's probably the debate for two best key forwards in the draft. I'm more of a Harry guy. I don't know what it is. I just think he's got something about him where, similar to a Larky, like he won't be involved in the game, but all of a sudden he'll end up with 4 goals. And I just think players like that, in my opinion, are more valuable as a key forward than almost any other type of key forward you can find. Like you can have more athleticism, you can have, someone a bit more, you're better at ground level, things like that. But at the end of the day, if you can turn your low possessions, which key forwards generally have, into high amount of goals, that's gold for me. So I think Job's not quite at that level. I'm going to drop him into B. And at the end of here of B, I reckon the other 3 guys above there have a little bit more potential than him. But a very good player. Very impressed by his VFL form. And again, in a draft that wasn't so stacked with solid options, as you're sort of seeing here, there's a lot of A's and B's going on. I think he's probably a top 10 pick. You'll slip out in this draft next week, but not by too much, I don't think. Now we got Toby Travaglia. This guy here, I had him really high months ago. Like first half of the year, he was in my top 5 and I wouldn't get rid of him. And then as the year went on, I think it was more so the other players showing a bit more of their stuff rather than him not showing his. And he did play VFL. He was sort of just what I expect of him at the AFL level, which will give away where I'm going to rank him. But he was more just tough, played his role, lowish possessions, like your 10 to 15 sort of possessions, but hard work. I think he'll be like Will Day-esque development if all goes well, because Will Day's an excellent player. So I can't put him in A, but I will put him, because he's my boy, I'm going to put him right behind Bo Allen here, in between Bo and Leo. Yeah, I don't know. That feels right. We'll see how we go. I might change it later. Isaac Kako up next. He's another one out of sight, out of mind. Excellent player. Like, plays in through the midfield, high half forward pocket. No matter where you put him, he's just all impact. This might surprise a few people, and it kills me to say that he's going to the Bombers. I'm putting him in the A tier. And I'm putting him... I'll put him before Armstrong. I really like Isaac Kako. I think he's going to light up the league and be a really exciting player. So, yeah. Unfortunately to the Bombers, but yeah, he's just electrifying. Like Grindmeyers-esque, but I think he's even got more athletic ability than Grindmeyers. So, if that comes true, and my judgment on that's correct, I think there's no reason he's not an A-tier player in the league, to be honest. Cooper Hines, I've been banging on about this guy. Not that I've been ranking him too much higher than a lot of other people, but I truly believe in a, let's say, weaker draft or not as deep of a draft. I think he's pushing the top 10 as like a wild card sort of high impact player. Started the year as a forward, ends it as a mid, one of those sort of stories. Taller midfielder, I think he's 190 or thereabouts, a really explosive, powerful athlete. I'm not sure why he doesn't get even more love. Like me sort of saying that I rate him a bit higher than others, I'm not sure what's holding other people back. He's really proven it pretty consistently all year, and he's got a lot of X factor. So for me, I actually like him better than a lot of these guys. in B, and I'm going to put him just slightly below Leo because he's done it at the VFL level, as has Toby Travaglia, and I've seen a bit more evidence of these guys against senior bodies, but he's right there, right after those guys, in my opinion. Then we've got Harvey Langford, ranked really highly by Cal Toomey and a few others, and I really like him as well. I hear the whole argument about he's not as fast, but he ran well at the combine in terms of endurance, and he's obviously got the height, the presence, leadership, and he can make an impact up forward. So there's a really strong case for him to be a top 3 pick, like Cal and a few others are saying. For me, I see him more like after pick 5, to be honest. I see a few guys better than him. In saying that, when it comes to this ranking here, I'm sort of between upper B and sort of lower end A. I don't know. I actually haven't planned this. I'm sort of just going here and vibing it, but I'll go A tier. And you know what? It's sort of bugging me seeing Armstrong there. I do feel like he's, I'm going to harshly just drop him a few spots now. I'm going to drop him here. Armstrong goes back down to B. Langford goes up to A, I reckon. That's sort of how I see it. And actually, Langford goes above Kako. There we go. Yeah, I don't know. That looked right. Finn O'Sullivan's next. Finn, I really wish he just had a great year because he'd be the number 1 pick and no one would bat an eye. He's that good of a player. You could still take him 1 and no one will care, but the reality is he didn't play that well this year. He had injuries, and only towards the end of the year did he start showing his stuff a bit. And even then, a few of those games were in the VFL where he was playing half forward, and it was really more about moments rather than dominating any games, which is fine. I mean, not every player needs to dominate in their draft year to dominate at AFL level. Like even Harry Sheezel, as good as he's been since he stepped foot in the AFL, he wasn't exactly on ball getting 30 touches. He was high impact forward of the ball. So I wouldn't rule it out on Finn to be anything at the AFL level, but I do have some reservations. I can't really... I'm going to put him in A. I think there's a world where he's not the absolute best player in his team or top 3 on his team, but he's like a top 5 or so player in his team. And that's sort of what these A graders are in this ranking. So he's the upper of A. There's no way he's not leaving that spot there. No one's ahead of him in A. If anything, I might change my mind and put him in S. Speaking of S, next in the list is my guy, Jagger Smith. I'm going to put him in S there, but not above... Oh, actually... Who do I actually think is the best of these 3? Jagger, Sid, or Levi? I'm going to go... Do I go... You know what? I had Jagger 1 on my last ranking vid. I'm going to stick by Jagger. I'll go Jagger, Levi, Sid in that order. And here's the thing about Jagger. Like, we can say, like, getting a lot of the ball maybe doesn't mean so much. Like, look at a guy like Elijah Sardis. Plenty of the footy in his draft year and then not really put it together at AFL level. But I see the difference pretty clearly with Jagger being 2 things. One, I think despite his size and light frame, he's just really tough and he can get his hands free crucially. And that's the most important thing as a midfielder is you will get tackled. There's no doubt about it. But when you do get tackled, what happens next? And with Jagger, he gets tackled all the time, but he gets his hands free and hits accurate handballs. And crucially, he can also push off. Similar to a Chad Warner, he can fend off despite the lighter frame and just bounce off people. So I think with that in mind, give him a couple years in the system to build a little bit more strength. Obviously, he will need to do that. But if he's bouncing off guys like Chad Warner and then getting as much of the ball as he does, I think the sky's the limit for him. I think he's easily a top player in his team wherever he goes in a few years' time, like a leading midfielder, leading disposal getter week in, week out. So, and I really like the way he speaks too. Like when he was on Gettable, showed a lot of poise with his communication, a lot of leadership as well, which I really rate. And that's the common theme amongst these 3 guys here is obviously their footy does the talking first, but the more I've learnt about them, it's sort of cemented themselves as the top 3 in my mind, as the total package. And yeah, had it not been for Finn not delivering so much on the field, I feel bad though having him 4th. Nah, look, it is what it is. I can't have everyone S. You've got to leave the S a bit exclusive, I reckon. Next up is Christian Moraes. He kind of fell off the radar too. Excellent first half of the year. Like he's getting mocked in the teens pretty consistently. And then he's dropped off to like more of a mid-20s pick or even late 20s. And I think the reason, like the injury he got and he stopped playing the last sort of third of the season. But I think there's just a lot of these kind of players. Like you look at like a Lombard, a Hines, Even Marshall sort of delivering week in, week out. So I think a lot of guys' names just pushed down the list and he just got pushed out naturally. But I think he's a really good player. I'm going to put him in C. I might even put him... I'll put him at the end of C. But for me, that C tier is kind of like in the best 22, not in danger of getting dropped, like a high-quality contributor, sort of after the top 10 players in a team in that next sort of 10 to 15 batch. So, I think he's going to be good. Really skillful. Can play more your wing, half-forward role. So every team needs players like that can hit targets and make an impact forward of the ball. Josh Smiley. This guy at the start of the year, as a North fan, he was like, sign me up. 195 centimetre mid, dominating, kicking goals, getting plenty of the ball. And you're thinking, how did we end up in this spot now where he's not considered a top 3 or 5 pick in most people's eyes? And I think the reality is there were certain moments of the year where people wanted to see him step up. Like for Vic Metro, he was perfectly fine. But like I said, there was moments in games where like a Sid Draper would just see the ball and just beat him to it and bump him off it. And I just think the moments like that just sort of built as the year went on. And it doesn't mean he's not a top 10 worthy pick. It just means despite his frame and everything he's got going for him, I think something is there making him not a no-brainer as a top 3 or 5 pick. And I think that's very telling because obviously the draft recruiters and so on are a lot smarter than you or I are. So I think if they're not rating him consensus top 3 with all the physical gifts he has, I think there's something in that. And it gives a lot of people's suspicions a bit of validity, at least at this point. I hope he proves everyone wrong and just dominates. But I can't possibly put him S, but I'm comfortable putting him above Kako, but after Langford. I think that's the right spot for him. He's still an A grade. Like, based on what I said, you might think I'm underrating him, but I just think with his tools, he should be a no-brainer top 3 pick. Like, North should be looking at him like, yep. And there was a world at the start of the year where that was it. I was just checking Smiley highlights every week, but as the year went on, it's like, okay, something about this kid's not a no-brainer, but I still rate him quite highly, so he's going to stick in the A tier. My boy, Kale Gerine, or Gerin, I see different pronunciations, so I'm just going to go with Gerine because that's what I've been saying, but happy to be corrected. This guy is my, like, forget who I rate the highest. He's definitely my favorite player in the draft, just because he's been my boy from all along. I've been tracking him all year. Tall ruck forward, like 199 centimeters, but I'm going to say the cringy line of like plays like a mid. Running bounces, completely dominates the Waffle Colts, which I know is a weaker competition. But he also played well for WA. People forget that, and no one mentions it. So I think when he has had the opportunity to step up and play a higher level of competition, whether it's, I think he played one Waffle game at the end of the year and did okay, or whether it was for WA, I think that's when he showed actually this isn't just some guy that's bigger than other guys in the Colts. He's actually playing well. Low center of gravity, tested really well with agility at the combine. And I just think with the tools he's got, the skill he has, like I said, running bounces as a 199 centimeter player. Like we all rave about Luke Jackson, rightfully so. I don't see why we can't rate him close to that highly. So for me, because he's my boy, I'm putting him upper B tier, right in the middle there, after Leo Lombard, but before Cooper Hines. So what does that make him at the moment? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, there might be some players pushing up, but that's sort of thereabouts where I've rated him. So, my absolute boy, when he dominates in the years to come, remember the name AFL enjoys. Deano said it first. Xavier Lindsay. I regretfully didn't have him in my first top 20, but then I snuck him in the latter bit of the top 20 on my second one. And he just seems to be rising and rising. There's a lot of talk the Giants are into him. They've got picks there in the teens. There's even talks of like Eagles after the top 10 picks are done. They're sort of thereabouts. I see it. I'm a bit skeptical on the pace or lack of, but very skillful. Great leader. I think he's going to be the player that plays off a halfback and just completely, runs the show for a team. Just elite disposal. And players like that are really valuable. So I think out of respect to his skill and probably sure-thingness, if that's even a word, I'm going to put him after my boy, but solidly there in the B tier, I reckon. The Flying Viking, Alex Tyree. This guy here is just risen up the boards. Part of me thinks, like, is it just because, say, a team like North's showing interest that it's kind of like word gets out and then everyone starts ranking him higher? Or is it actually what he's done? And I guess the only thing you can do is go back to the tape and just see his highlights. And given he's an intercept defender, I mean, you can compare him to a Luke Trainer and say, okay, well, what's really different about the two? And that's a fair argument. And for some reason, though, despite, yes, I'm a North fan and I know we're into Tyroo, I'm not going to rate him higher than I truly believe he is. I don't think he's an A tier right now. I think he's an upper B. So I'm going to put him here. But in saying that, if North picks him at 2, I'll G it up because that's what I do. But no, he's an excellent leap and great mark. And I think ultimately when you have speed, when you have wingspan and good timing and good hands, that's the skill set you need to be a good intercept defender or a forward. There is talks that he'll play forward eventually. So ultimately, I think that the proof's there. He has shown that. It's not just some idea based on testing that he's got these attributes. He's done it in games and taken some really impressive marks. But I would be lying if I said I truly think at this point in time he's better than these guys. And I'm a bit scared if North takes him early. And again, speaking as a North fan, I'm worried if we pick him at 2. I'm all for trading down to 6 and grabbing him there or something like that. But 2 scares the shit out of me. Because there have been guys in the past that seem like sure things like Denver Granger Barris and those kind of guys that are like, yeah, of course they're a top 5 pick. And then you draft them, it's like, oh, actually, they're not. So I hope that doesn't happen. But I can't, for that reason, put him in the A because I don't see a world where these A and S guys aren't great players. But I can see a world in this B tier where a few of these guys maybe don't hit. So yeah, I don't know. I can't put him in A. I can't. Sorry, North fans. Joe Berry, another one who gets a lot of high praise as probably the best small forward in the draft other than Kako. I definitely think Kako's better. I probably think it's not as, it's further away and not as close as what people are saying. But that's nothing against Berry. I do want to place him B. I'm actually going to go C. I don't know. I don't think he's going to be like top 10, 15 player in a team at any point in time, but I think he's like not going to get dropped, but he's not going to be anything more than just a really good sort of damaging small forward, but not like the elite level small forwards. I think that's a bit of a reach, but I'll put him above. I'll put him upper C. I think upper C is fair. Now, the Whitlock brothers, let's do them together. Everyone, I mean, I'm not going to say everyone because I haven't read everything on the internet or seen everything, but most people say Jack's better and Matt's sort of the slightly lesser talented. The reality is Matt played key defender and then went forward and kicked bags of goals. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm happy to put him a bit higher than Jack just because he's proven it on both ends. And Jack's more of that forward ruck, but not necessarily, not necessarily dominating the ruck. He's just tall and played ruck. I think there's a difference in that. So I'm going to go Matt higher. I'm going to put Matt in lower B after Job. And I'm going to put Jack in upper C above Berry. You guys probably thought, oh, what's happened to Berry? You guys probably thought the Whitlocks will be on the same tier, but there's a bit of a curveball for you. So Matt, a bit better than Jack, I reckon. I reckon Matt's going to be a good player. Can play both ends. And I don't really care for a forward ruck that their ruck craft's not excellent just because you're tall. I don't know. I want to see more of the natural forward craft in that scenario. Jesse Totoli. Apparently, like, side note, not anything on-field related, but apparently at the Combine, he was cracking up recruiters. Like, he's a funny guy. And then I don't know if you guys have seen Footy Yarn on YouTube, funny channel, does the Games of Pig with various draft prospects. And yeah, I saw that. I was looking out for his personality a bit, and he's a funny guy, Jesse. So fair play to him. On the field, though, I quite like him. I think he, in all the times I was watching Vic Metro, he sort of caught the eye as not someone you sort of go into the game to see, but he just popped up all the time, like smart plays, tough. I liken him more to Dylan Moore than Berry. I think Berry gets sort of compared to Dylan Moore. I think Jesse Totoli is more of a Dylan Moore kind of player. In saying that, I don't think he will be as good as Dylan Moore. Dylan Moore's a very good player. So I'm going to go upper C for Jesse Totoli. Yeah, I'll go above Jack Whitlock, I reckon. Go above Whitlock. And above Berry, crucially. That's probably going to take a few of you, take you by surprise a little bit. I think the Totoli might be better than Joe Berry. So we'll see how that pans out. Jonty Fall, key forward. This is an interesting one. I mean, he ended the year as strongly as any of the key forwards, but he did play more footy because his team was winning. So got more opportunity, more exposure. He was sort of the only key forward, him and Harry Armstrong, to watch it towards the end of the year there. So there's a bit more exposure. The reality is, I just think there's more of a sure thing with Armstrong and Job, less of a sure thing with Jonty, but you can't rule out his potential, and apparently he works his ass off, like really, Nick Rewald-esque, like just runs till he spews sort of thing. So I don't know if that's true, but for that reason, I think if he's got that kind of work ethic, I'm actually going to put him above Jack Whitlock in that upper C tier. Feel bad for Jacko here. He's on his own. Actually, I'll chuck Tommy Gross next to him. Tommy Gross just sort of spoken about like that sure thing, just tough mid role player. And I think that's what this D tier is for, is those end of best 22, but certainly playing a role week in, week out. So, Grossy can join there. Harry Oliver had a nice little write-up on AFL.com recently, talking about his toughness and his sort of bravery and stuff like that. And I think if you're a 180 centimetre, mostly a halfback, but your main trait is that you're tough and putting it all on the line, I think ultimately teams that are selecting you probably have a role for you in mind. And it doesn't mean that you're one of these B, A, or S tier guys, but it probably means that you're going to be a good contributor on a good team. And guys like that, you need competitors. So I still, just to fill out the D tier a bit, I'm going to put him upper D, because there's nothing, especially like sexy about him as a prospect or anything, but I think he's going to get the job done and be on a 22 for years to come. And then there's Mr. Basketball, Alex Dodson, to round things out here. Admittedly, I'm a Cale Gerina's best ruck in the draft kind of man, but if you ask most others, they're going to tell you Dodson's the best ruck in the draft. And even in saying that, he's probably not going to get selected in the top 20 unless a team really desperately wants a ruckman. Like maybe a Richmond snags him with one of their late picks, because they've got a couple late end of first rounders there, and ultimately probably a replacement for Nank long term's not the worst idea if they don't already believe in what they've got. So he can go probably anywhere from late teens to mid 20s, maybe even late 20s. Far as I'm concerned, though, I don't know. I'm not going to rate him higher than guys in this C tier. So I'm going to go lower C, because I think he will be a full-time ruckman. And naturally, if you're a full-time ruckman, you're probably not at the end of that best 22. You're probably firmly set in the 22 there. So there's Dodson there, and that is pretty much it. Let me just review this for a second. So we got Jagger, Levi, and Sid as the S tier. Finn at upper A, just, it's my rankings. I'm going to back it in, but I know I'm going to be wrong on that. And then you got Lawler, Murphy, Reed, my boy. You know what? I've always had Murphy above Lawler. I'm going to do something controversial here and do that. Murphy above Lawler. Probably making people lose their minds out there, but that's okay. It's my list. And then we got Tyroo. I feel bad for having Tyroo in B, but I'm going to trust my instinct on it. I'm a bit scared picking him in the top 5. Yeah. No, I like that. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Obviously, at this time of the year, there's a lot of draft content, a lot of good content creators out there. So hopefully this has been something interesting for you to see. But ultimately, I guess we'll find out not only next week, but in the years to come. So enjoy. See you guys in the next one.